John and Mary meet. What happens next? If you want a happy ending, try A. John and Mary fall in love. John and Mary fall in love and get married. They both have worthwhile jobs which they find stimulating and challenging. They buy a charming house. Real estate values go up. Eventually, when they can afford live-in help, they have 2 children, to whom they are devoted. The children turn out well. John and Mary have a stimulating and challenging life, and worthwhile friends. They go on fun vacations together. They retire. They both have hobbies which they find stimulating and challenging. Eventually, they die. This is the end of the story. Happy Endings by Margaret Atwood depicts a variety of scenarios one can go through when they are in love. The short story is divided into 6 main paragraphs where the characters' ultimate happy endings eventually lead to death. In paragraph A, John and Mary fall in love and get married. They lead a stimulating and challenging life and eventually die. In paragraph B, Mary falls in love with John, but John does not love Mary. John uses Mary for selfish pleasure. Mary finds John with another woman and kills herself by overdosing on pills. In paragraph C, John is a middle-aged married man who falls in love with Mary. Mary is in love with a younger man named James. John gets jealous and purchases a handgun, then kills Mary, James, and himself. In paragraph D, Fred and Madge have no problems. They get along well and live together in a house by the seashore. A huge tidal wave approaches their house. Thousands drown, but Fred and Madge escape. They are grateful and continue as in A. In paragraph E, Fred has a bad heart. Fred dies after spending quality time with Madge. Madge then devotes herself to charity and continues to A by herself. Paragraph F is used for the idea that, no matter what happens, everything eventually leads to death. John and Mary die. John and Mary die. John and Mary die. The plot is the main event in a piece of literature where all events relate to each other in a pattern or sequence. The plot should always be the focal point of a story. In most cases, the plot plays a critical role in determining the conclusion of the story. In Happy Endings, the author ironically writes a story where no core plotline exists in order to show the importance of an organized plot. Structure is the format or the organization of the component parts of a work of literature. Types of organization methods include narrative, chronological, cause and effect, and comparison. Happy Endings consists of multiple chronologically unrelated paragraphs. By organizing the story this way, the author creates an almost game-like structure that is intriguing to readers.
Point of view is the angle or perspective in which a story is written, as well as the mode of narration that lets the reader understand the story. Depending on the type of point of view, the reader can understand what one character thinks, or sometimes what all the characters think. In the short story, Happy Endings, the author uses 2 different points of view. She mostly uses third-person omniscient to serve as an all-knowing narrator. Occasionally, she uses the second-person point of view, which is uncommon. The second person is when the narrator talks to you. For example, she uses the second person when she says, "If you want a happy ending, try A."
When analyzing a short story, you can view the story through different lenses that each have their own focus. These different lenses are called approaches. By interpreting a piece of literature through each approach, you can get a deeper understanding of the story and its meaning. For example, you can view happy endings through a historical approach by understanding how the writer's life and a certain point in history affected the story. There are 3 types of historical approaches: biographical, cultural, and Marxist. For happy endings, it is most appropriate to use the biographical approach, which uses letters, journals, biographies, and other similar sources to determine how the writer's life influenced his or her writing. When using the historical approach, first research the author's general background. For example, Margaret Atwood was born in Ontario, Canada in 1939 and studied English and philosophy at the Victorian College in the University of Toronto. By conducting more research about her education, it becomes apparent that Atwood was heavily influenced by the feminist professors at the University of Toronto and the second feminist movement that was happening at this time in history. These influences can be seen in happy endings through the shared authority between John and Mary depending on each section of the story. Just as her professors introduced her to provocative and thought-provoking ideas, Atwood attempts to do the same in her pieces.
There's nothing in there.
Oh!